When the son of one of the most feared Mafia bosses fell mysteriously ill, hundreds of doctors across the world failed to save him. Hospitals turned into war zones of panic, money flowed like water, and every expert bowed out defeated. But deep in the city's poorest hospital, a young black woman, daughter of a janitor, quietly held the answer everyone missed. What she carried wasn't just medical genius, it was a lifetime of being underestimated. No one knew her name yet, but when she walked into that hospital room, she would rewrite the fate of a man and expose what true power really looks like. Before we uncover how this young woman defied every barrier and silenced a room full of doubters, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Every week we bring you powerful stories that expose injustice, celebrate resilience, and remind the world that brilliance knows no color. Now, let's go back to the moment it all began, the night a Mafia heir's life hung by a thread, and the most unlikely healer stepped forward. The story began in one of the most powerful cities in America, a place where luxury cars lined the streets and fear had a name. That name was Don Vincenzo, a Mafia boss whose influence stretched beyond politics, beyond justice, beyond mercy. His empire ran on silence and fear, but all his wealth and power became meaningless the day his only son, Marco, collapsed without warning. What started as a faint cough spiraled into something darker. Organs failing, immune system shutting down, a mystery no one could solve. Doctors were flown in from Switzerland, Japan, and the United States. Each arrived with confidence and left with shame. Every diagnosis turned into another failure. Meanwhile, across town, in the same city where marble halls echoed with desperation, a young black woman named Amara was finishing a late shift at St. Jude's Hospital. She wasn't a doctor, at least not yet. She was the daughter of the hospital's janitor, working nights in the research lab while finishing her degree in molecular biology. Amara had always been invisible in rooms filled with privilege, but her mind was sharper than the scalpel of any surgeon. That night, while others rushed past her, she studied the strange symptoms spreading across the medical reports circulating through the hospital system. She noticed something no one else did, a pattern buried beneath layers of missed details. The same lab errors, the same strain of infection, the same clue everyone ignored. She didn't have access, authority, or permission, but she had brilliance and the courage to act when the world didn't believe she could. Amara's discovery began as a whisper in her mind, a quiet realization that refused to fade. She cross-checked the hospital's lab data and found inconsistencies the top physicians had overlooked. The same protein imbalance appeared in each test result, disguised by layers of misread symptoms. To her, it wasn't a random disease. It was something caused by exposure to an experimental compound, a toxin designed to mimic autoimmune failure. Whoever treated Marco had never asked why his body was shutting down. They only focused on how to stop it. While the world of medicine bowed to status, Amara lived in the shadows of that world, mopping the floors her father cleaned and solving complex formulas that others dismissed as impossible. But the night she connected the dots, she knew she couldn't stay silent. She drafted a hypothesis report and sent it anonymously to the hospital board, only to have it ignored within hours. No one read the name Amara without assuming it belonged to someone who didn't belong there. Days passed and Marco's condition worsened. Rumors spread across the city that the Mafia boss had lost faith in science, calling in spiritual healers and miracle workers. The media spun the story as divine punishment, but for Amara it was simple, a biological equation waiting to be solved. She sneaked into the restricted wing one evening, under the pretense of cleaning duty, and studied Marco's real-time vitals from the control panel. What she saw confirmed her theory. The boy's blood contained a rare enzyme reaction linked to a discontinued drug once used in genetic trials. Her father begged her to stop, fearing what might happen if she was caught meddling with the Mafia's business. But Amara couldn't ignore the truth. She worked nights in secret, crafting an antidote formula derived from natural immune regulators, ingredients no modern doctor would dare use. It was risky, untested, and illegal without authorization, yet it was the only chance the dying boy had. When she presented her findings to the lead physicians again, they dismissed her instantly. One of them laughed outright, saying, "You think you found what 100 doctors missed?" She said nothing, just handed over her analysis and walked away. But someone was listening, someone who reported her to Don Vincenzo himself. Within hours, 2 men in black suits appeared at the hospital, demanding to see the janitor's daughter. Amara's world turned cold. Her co-workers froze as she was escorted out of the building, not in chains, but in silence. In the back of that black car, she didn't beg or explain. She only carried her formula and a notebook filled with equations that could rewrite fate. She didn't know if she was being taken to her death or to a patient no one else could save. The car stopped outside a private mansion surrounded by armed guards and silence so heavy it felt alive. Amara was escorted through golden halls and into a room where time itself seemed to be holding its breath. There, on a grand hospital bed, lay Marco, the once proud heir of the Mafia empire, now reduced to a pale shadow, his heartbeat fading like a whisper. Beside him stood Don Vincenzo, a man feared by nations, his eyes burning with desperation instead of power. He said nothing at first, just studied the young woman standing before him, her worn sneakers, her trembling hands clutching a notebook, the quiet fire in her eyes. "They said you had an idea," he finally muttered, not as a command, but a plea. Amara stepped closer to the bedside. The machines hummed softly, marking the fragile rhythm between life and death. Her analysis confirmed everything. Marco's immune system was collapsing due to a synthetic compound lodged deep in his bloodstream. Every treatment the doctors used had only accelerated the damage. She explained it once, calmly, then began preparing the antidote she had created from natural immune stabilizers, antioxidants, and a restructured enzyme that targeted the toxin directly. Everyone in the room watched in silence as she administered the injection. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Then suddenly the monitors flickered. The boy's pulse strengthened. His oxygen levels rose. The disbelief that swept through the room was electric. For the first time in weeks, Marco's eyes opened, faint but alive, focusing on the face of the woman who refused to be ignored. Don Vincenzo dropped to his knees beside the bed. Power, fear, money, none of it mattered anymore. A girl the world had overlooked had just done what 100 doctors couldn't. In that moment, Amara wasn't a janitor's daughter. She was a symbol of brilliance born from struggle, a living proof that intelligence and worth know no race, no class, no permission. The sun rose quietly over the mansion the next morning, lighting the windows of a home that had witnessed a miracle. Marco was recovering, his heartbeat strong, his body stable. The doctors who once claimed nothing could be done now crowded around, speechless in the face of a young woman whose name they had never even written down. The air was thick with shame and awe. Don Vincenzo, the man who ruled through fear, stood before Amara with tears in his eyes. He offered her anything, money, protection, even the power of his empire. But she refused. All she wanted was recognition for the truth, that a janitor's daughter had saved his son not through luck, but through genius the world refused to see. In the days that followed, the news of Marco's recovery spread like wildfire. Hospitals whispered her name in disbelief. Professors called her discovery revolutionary, and research institutions begged her to join them. But Amara stayed grounded, still working alongside her father, cleaning floors at night, though now the same corridors that once ignored her now bowed with respect when she passed. The Mafia boss did what no one expected. He funded a medical foundation in her name, dedicated to providing research opportunities for underprivileged students of color. He called it the Amara Initiative, saying, "She healed more than my son, she healed my understanding of humanity." And though Amara never sought fame, her story became a quiet revolution. It spread beyond borders and screens, reminding millions that brilliance doesn't wear a white coat, and that humility can cure what arrogance can't even diagnose. Because sometimes, the ones the world overlooks aren't missing potential. They're just waiting for the right moment to show it. And when they do, they don't just save lives, they change how the world defines worth. So ask yourself, how many Amaras has the world ignored today simply because of where they were born or what color they were?